This episode of Down the Rabbit Hole on the Russia-Ukraine war is a little bit shorter due to some technical issues during recording, but we still wanted to cover a couple of things that have happened in the conflict in the last 48 hours or so. Starting with a very unique public speaking episode on behalf of one of Russia's spokespeople that came out earlier today, and that clip is going to be leading our episode here.
Ну и все, что связано было, как я уже сказала, с этникой, с культурой в первую очередь. Даже книги по кулинарии, они тоже запрещались. Почему? Потому что нельзя было делиться борщом. Ну нельзя, он должен был принадлежать только кому-то одному. Вот только кому-то одному, какому-то одному народу, одной национальности. А так, чтобы он был общий, и чтобы в каждом городе или в каждом регионе каждая хозяйка могла приготовить его по-своему, нет. На компромиссы идти не хотели. Так это и есть то, о чем мы говорим: ксенофобия, нацизм, экстремизм во всех видах.
Maybe this made more sense in the original Russian. Either way, Dr. Weber is going to help explain to us just what happened here, among other things today.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. We're back here with another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole on the Russia-Ukraine war. And as Yuval and I were just talking here, we're going to kind of do a little bit of a grab bag. But one of the big question we're just going to start off with here, we're just going to jump right into it, is there's been a lot of really weird stuff coming out of the Russian side lately on a number of fronts. And I'm not trying to make light of the situation at all, but it's really raising kind of a probably rather important question, especially when we're confronting a nuclear armed power. And that is, are the inmates running the asylum right now? Who's in charge?
So thank you, Ian. And I'd like to note for our viewers is that Major Brown and myself have known each other for more than 2 years at this point, and we just started using each other's first names, which is a very exciting development in apparently this very slow burn of a friendship. But in like the core of your question, what are the things that we've seen from right now is the two issues of the day, which sort of like brought up this question, is the Russians took credit for bombing several train stations today until they found out that they killed around 50 civilians and injured many, many more. And then they went into the MH17, overdrive, which is to say, after taking credit for it, they said, actually, it didn't happen. Then it was actually the Ukrainians. And we're in this stage where they're saying this is all a provocation and this is all like a faked war crime instead of a real one in order to, tarnish Russia's image abroad. We also had the foreign ministry spokesperson, Maria Zakharova, show up for her daily briefing quite visibly intoxicated, which is a look, honestly, to be drunk at work, especially when you are being broadcast in the entire universe. She was holding on to the podium very tightly and went on somewhere between a rant and an elegy. It wasn't quite clear, but definitely she was about to start crying by the end of the rant, wherein she said that the real problem with the Ukrainians is that they weren't willing to share credit for inventing borscht, the beet soup. And this went very quickly into accusations of xenophobia, nationalism, and Nazism. And so part of the question of like, are the inmates running the asylum is something that was true about Russia for a very long time. And sort of like the way that Russia is run, like under Putin, is that it is a very personalist autocracy. And a personalist autocracy is all the power is concentrated in one particular individual, obviously Putin. And the people around Putin are the people who understand, okay, the boss is talking about this in public, Ukraine shouldn't exist. We should make our economy more resilient to sanctions, whatever it is. And so you just have all the people around him having their best idea of what he wants and then doing it. So when times are normal, they can check in with the boss. They can have essentially this principal agent between the boss and themselves in order to just carry on and do their work and have the presidential administration, like Putin's bureaucratic body, actually coordinate and handle things. What we're seeing over the last couple of weeks is under tremendous amounts of stress, different individuals are rising to the occasion in terms of like Russian policy, and others are not. But what that reveals is without Putin really being in manual control of everyone at all times, is that some things are just going off the rails. So, for example, we've had in the economic realm, the ruble has recovered most of its the losses that it experienced in the first couple of weeks of the war. How has that been the case? Well, Elvira Nabiulina, who is the head of the Russian Central Bank, and Maxim Mereshkin, who's a special economic assistant to the president, and Anton Siluanov, who is the finance minister. These are all fairly competent people. They have a very difficult job, but they're fairly competent. So what they were able to do is use orthodox economic and fiscal moves to basically stabilize the economy and stabilize the ruble by imposing capital controls, like very, very strict capital controls, and letting basically consumption, i.e. people's living standards in Russia decline. That's going to be very bad for Russia over the next couple weeks and months as the amount of imports that are able to come into the country decline just in the quality and in the type. So, for example, just on that, I've been following the business news in Russia, obviously since the beginning of the war and before then. And one of the lists that I'm starting to keep is what are all the imports that are not making it into Russia? Just yesterday, the contact lens people, there's several distributors of, externally produced contact lenses, said that contact lenses are basically have like 1 to 2 months of supply left before there will be no more contact lenses in Russia. That seems to me absolutely insane, but like here we are. The tire people are clearly far more prepared for something like this because they announced that they have between various all season, winter, etc., that they have a 2-year supply of tires in place in the country right now. So we can see that in the economic realm, there is at the highest levels much more talent, much more organization. You have basically in different industries, some are more open, basically some are more prepared, others are less prepared. So we also see in terms of, what we talked at the top of the episode, which is they just bombed a train station that they knew civilians were using in order to flee the area. They bombed it, took credit for it, and then they realized it was a bad idea. So in essence, that says either they didn't know that a civilian train station was being used for civilian purposes, or they wanted to take credit for it and then thought better of it. Neither of which indicates that the command and control in the defense realm, like many other things that we've seen during this war, are totally organized and that people have a sense what is right, what is wrong, what are we doing it, why are we doing it? And that indicates one of the failures of personalist autocracies. If you don't have someone in control, you have everyone doing their best. And in this situation, their best is not good enough in order to run an entire war as well as convert to a war footing for the economy. And that is what we can see is happening in terms of things starting to fall apart and the ability of Russia to conduct, in the next couple of days and weeks, another offensive in Donbass. That's going to be a challenge as well. Now, again, in Donbass, it's going to be a smaller area, so they won't have to do as much. The operational tempo will be increased, but still, where's the command and control and the clear idea of why people are doing things and for what reason?
Yeah, so this actually this bleeds nicely into the or segues nicely, I should say, into a sort of a related topic here, but going sort of more into the military realm. But in terms of that breakdown of command and control, I was either today or yesterday, I think it was yesterday, where there's a Russian outlet that had admitted that casualties have been very bad among the Russian military they've been operating. Which certainly there's been a lot of Ukrainian and NATO and other open source reporting indicating that. But if I remember, there like the one time a Russian ministry put out actual casualty numbers on a web page that was quickly yanked back. And of course, all of the other generals and Sergei Lavrov have been saying the special military operations have been going very well and don't talk about casualties or losses at all. So one, does the fact that the words like losses were very high coming out, is that another indicator of this breakdown in the command and control between the different pieces of the personal estate? And then two, with that admission, is it possible that the condition of those Russian forces now going into the Donbass, could they be in even worse shape than we think we've been seeing, for them to say that themselves? And sort of to lead into that, the Donbass itself, what does that indicate about any likelihood of achieving some sort of military goals in the Donbass if they're hurting that badly that they're admitting it?
So certainly, so the numbers that you're referring to were in effect at the time, roughly speaking, in line with Ukrainian estimates. And it was in Komsomolskaya Pravda, which is one of like the big tabloids, like a New York Post sort of newspaper. And it was up there. It was certainly not confirmed by any government source, and it was gone fairly soon thereafter. So it was unclear whether it was real information that was erroneously published. It could have just been a person who just wanted to basically pull a prank to, nothing funny, but like war casualties, no matter which side in this context, but just wanted to sort of like put something that would get attention. Don't know what that was. We also have, like, as of a quote of yesterday, the Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, who said, "We have suffered many casualties, and of course it is a great tragedy for us." He didn't give a number, but he acknowledged casualties are happening, which suggests that they recognize Ukrainian figures at the moment are somewhere in the realm of like 18,500 Russian soldiers killed. Now, again, that's not confirmed, but basically that's the last time I checked, that's what they're saying. If that is the case, one, those 18,500 families like notified? Are they not going to be notified? What happens when people start noticing, like, dad's not calling, like my husband's not calling, my brother's not calling? What's going on with that? That's going to be a very difficult information campaign against their own people that they'll need to manage. Second is, as you mentioned, the casualty figures that the Ukrainians are saying, within, a week, 10 days, basically NATO catches up to saying, yes, we have more confidence in that figure than the previous low confidence when it was first announced. That also suggests that there are, we've seen, like I was just watching this video, there was in one of the sort of units, they were having a collective funeral for what looked to be like 24 guys, which indicates that probably an entire unit like met the receiving end of some sort of missile and the entire unit's gone. So in terms of taking people from busted up units, aggregating them into new ones, trying to fill holes created by casualties elsewhere, that also just suggests that not only are these people exhausted by still fighting after 6 weeks, but that they're going to be in new units with new missions, with people they don't know, perhaps using weapons they're not familiar with, and certainly not having clarity of what it is that they're supposed to be doing if they're being, rushed back into battle. And so when we then think about how effective will they be in any sort of new offensive, it doesn't portend very well for Russian forces. And basically, are all of their new offenses going to be in basically with missions that are relatively more simple than trying to capture like an entire capital city? Will they just be more effective because they're they're going to something that is relatively simpler, but it is also going to be harder because they're probably also like totally exhausted at this point. And they've also lost like a lot of equipment at this point. Totally unclear. But I mean, if I'm like a big Russian general, I'm thinking, I don't know how much confidence I have, but I'm thinking if I don't deliver some victory quickly, I'm going to be in a bad place myself.
As always, we're grateful to Dr. Weber for his time, and we look forward to bringing you another longer episode without all of the electronic gremlins storming around. Thank you.